Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is move the SSD drive to the other side. So it's held in place by this bit of tape, so we're just going to remove that, take out any bolt that you've got holding the gimbal to the brain, and then we'll be able to feed this cable through and out the other side, like so. So you can put the tape back there and have the SSD coming out the other side. While this is apart, I'm going to take this bottom piece, which is already bolted together, so just remove those two screws and those two screws and it will come apart. So you have these two pieces like that, and they're going to go between the gimbal and the brain, and there's these little lug points that line up with the lug points on there, and then we're going to use the four longer M2.5 screws that are included go on these four front ones, and then we're going to use the two shorter ones on the back there. Okay, one side in place like so. Now we can take the other side and hopefully repeat it. I did that one up a bit too tight. This is why you need to leave a bit of slack. There we go, and you can see it goes. So that's going together a lot easier now that we've got that one side in. So yeah, these middle ones are definitely the hardest ones to get in, but if you push the gimbal out the way, you can get the bolt in, and without any real force you should be able to get it to drop through down to the point where it wants to screw in. And I'm not going to lie, it is fiddly. I'm sorry if this isn't even on camera. Now, instead of using a normal regular driver, it's actually a good idea to use one of these ball head ones. Now with that bottom section in place, you can go ahead and put these carbon parts back that help hold it all together. So you've got that little one in the front there and this one on the back. Okay, so now with this bottom piece fitted in place, we're going to move on to fitting the PDB mount. This fits in the center section here. There's a little nubbin that's sticking out at the bottom of this, goes into the top of this part, and then there's these two holes where this M2.5 bolt will go through. So you just push the little nubbin into the slot and hold that in place, and you have to push this in quite tightly in order to get the bolt through. So while holding it tight, you're just going to feed the bolt through, at least get it started. It's going to be quite tight, so the best thing you can just use a driver to help it through. And just make sure it's coming through the hole on the other side. Just get your M2.5 nut and try and get that over the bolt and tighten it up. I find you need to screw it through a little bit before getting a driver on it and tightening that up fully. Like so. So now that we've got that in place, we could fit the PCB, the PDB. All I've done to prepare this is take the plugged cables off of the battery attachment and solder on this XT60 female. It's a lot easier to plug all these back in while it's off, while this board isn't attached. Okay, so we're going to fit these 4 SMA to UFL antennas, and to do that we're going to remove the GPS and this front antenna piece, and just in this slot here, I'll turn it around like that. You can see the UFL connectors there, and we've got to go down into that slot and plug them all in. The one on this side is going to be the first one you put in, because you need to pull that out of the way to get the rest in. So just use a pair of tweezers, maybe even a driver to help push it in, and pop all 4 of these SMA to UFL antennas on. So now we have 4 SMAs sticking out like so. I'm going to take the 2 at the back and bend them over. If you're looking at it from the back, so my side, I'm going to bend the 2 at the back over and to the left, and the 2 at the front over and to the right. Then we're going to take the little antenna thing here and reattach it like so. So you should have your antennas popping out like that. So then we have our 4 SMA antennas ready to connect to the front shell. Okay, so now that we've got our connectors, all the wires plugged back in and the metal retaining clips in place, which you can only put 1 screw in at this time because the other one is used for securing it to the PDB mount. You can see we've got 2 cables coming out the middle here and 1 coming out the side. On this side you can see that I've unhooked it, and what we're going to do is actually feed it, because we don't need it to be quite as long. We're going to feed it back up here slightly and then use those little cable hooks to hold it in place. You should be able to push it all the way back to where the black starts, just as a reference. And then these ones in the middle are going to just kind of pull up in the bottom there, so you're just going to feed them into the bottom and just neatly tuck them in there before fitting the PDB to these 4 mounting points using the included M1.6 screws. Now, before we actually mount the PDB to the PDB mount, it's a good idea to fit the ribbon cable. As you can see here, that I've modified mine slightly by adding a layer of Faraday tape around it. That's more for protection against it getting nicked as inside here. So just add the Faraday tape around that section of the ribbon cable, and then you'll see that one side's got a brown bit and one side's got the pins. It goes pin side down into the connector. So plug that in and clip the connector down before fitting the PDB to the PDB mount. So you can see here that I've got the PDB mounted on all the 4 points, and now you can tuck the cables in a bit neater. But before doing so, you've got to make sure you've got to feed this back around here, because it's this side that we're going to be storing all that excess cable, and you want the button to end up near the back here, so that when you have to power it on using a TB51, you also have to turn it on using the button. So It's good to keep that near the front so that when you're having to do binding, you can easily get to it. So you should be able to double it back on itself like that and just have it feeding up through there. When we fit the rest, obviously we'll pull this down and stick it on the inside there. We're going to fit the SMA pigtails to the front nose cone. So it should be pretty obvious that they're going to go through the back here and out there, and are secured in place using the nuts and spring washer that comes with it. So you're going to want to fit the bottom two first, and then as you move, and obviously you're going to have to double this back and get it out of the way. Same, make sure the other cables are all nice and neatly tucked out of the way. And as you move this further down, then leave space to fit the other two. You won't be able to secure the front nose in place without the other parts, but I think it's best to get this in place and know that it's going to fit together properly without causing any issues. So you just feed the SMA antennas down so that they're not curled up over the top of it. And there's just about enough room to fit the SMA antennas, like so. Okay, so the two side panels here, one of them is already pre-fitted with a pod and has nothing on the other side. This one has a slot, and the pod has this mounting point on it there. That's for your SSD drive. So you take the carbon part with the hole in it, with the countersunk holes on the outside, feed the printed part through like, oh, there was a screw in there, sorry, like so. Then take the SSD drive and drop it into the slot, and then hold it in place with these two nuts and bolts. And then for the third bolt, you're going to poke it through so that the hole is exposed so you can get the bolt through. Then push it back through the print. And I'm not going to be able to do this facing the camera because it's quite tricky. You're going to take your other nut and get it on the screw behind. You're going to need to use a pair of tweezers to hold it in place. You might need to clamp this all in place so that it's not moving, so you can use both hands, but you can still get a head. You're going to have to pull this down through slightly so you can get the bolt onto the bolt, and you're going to do that third bolt up. Okay, so now the SSD drive is mounted to the print. You can feed it through the carbon like so. Neatly arrange the cable so it's all below the SSD drive. And then use two of the 20mm countersunk screws. They go through these 2 points here, out the other side and into the standoffs. And now with that side plate installed, make sure that it's not overhanging the bottom and it lines up nicely. We can now maneuver this front cone into place like so, line up all the bolts and start fitting all these screws. 3 screws down there and 2 screws in the bottom. So start by putting in these 2 bottom ones. That holds this plate nicely in line with the bottom, and then this front cone just lines up neatly. like so, and then go put the 3 screws in there. Now with that side finished, we're going to move on to the other side, which has a similar plate, and we're just going to put the 2 20mm standoffs through there, and the 2 20mm countersunk bolts through there and into those 2 standoffs there. But before we do so, we're just going to arrange this slightly, and what we're going to do is stick this to the inside of this plate afterwards. So you just want to have it feed out near the front, and then fit this side panel like so. There's quite a lot of excess here, so you actually want it to be stuck at the top, so you want it to go above those standoffs. So when you screw these 2 20mm bolts through into the standoffs, you want that to be placed above it. You can actually fold the LED down a bit like that, just so it's a bit smaller, and just tuck it inside like so. Now we're going to fit the top plate, which looks like this. You've got these 2 bits here which slide underneath the canopy, and these metal bits that go down either side here, like so. And now we can put 2 more screws in there and there, and there and there. Okay, so with the top plate in place, we move on to the rear panel. So similar situation, but we got 2 mounting points there and there, and then on the sides. Only difference being, of course, that you need to connect it. So plug that in like so. So now you'll be able to put your bolts in through there and there, and on the sides. And other than attaching the antennas, it's built. That is it, really. For the battery bay, I reattached the battery connector. I soldered on an XT60, and I extended the balance lead type thing there. So these 2 can just be plugged into the, you just change the back panel for this one and plug that in the right hand side socket at the bottom. I'll on screen something now, and then you can run a TB51 battery in there and power it up with the button. It's for binding or changing between camera A and B. Decided to sell this kit where it was a lot of the hard work was already done for you, so all the power supply and everything is all done ahead of time. So not a bad kit for putting together, and that's now ready to fire up and test. If you have any problems with it, then just go back through the steps and double check what you've done or haven't done, and take it from there. Okay, until the next one, laters.